Hello everyone. As we continue the course on the implications of misuse in cybersecurity, the next topic we'll be looking at is the misuse of information. So, let's get started. To many of us, the phrase knowledge is power is a very strong statement. I am sure many of us, after making a decision, once said, I wish I knew that. Why? Because information is a very valuable resource if we have it at the right time. And this is nothing new in the business world. For organizations, big or small, all gather information from a wide variety of sources. This can include their employees, customers, suppliers, and mostly their competitors. The information can range from their names to their phone number, address, and many other personal details like banking information, which you may never want a stranger to know. But some persons willingly give this information, and for good reason. When these people voluntarily provide information to organizations, it is usually for a specific purpose, such as hospitals, clinics, and health insurance agencies. We usually do this because we trust them with this information because we know they will use it to better help us. That is why measures should therefore be in place to ensure that information is not misused. However, security breaches on these systems that contain these private information are common. And once the information has been obtained by an unauthorized person, the information can then be used for purposes other than for those for which it was originally intended for, which is very common today. It is not uncommon today for agencies to provide mailing lists, which is a collection of names and addresses, to other companies who seek potential clients. For example, the names and addresses of persons between the ages of 18 and 25 earning above a given salary level may be sold by a bank to an associated insurance agent as targets for direct advertising. So because the insurance company now has this information, they can develop a policy that would sound just right to these targeted persons, making them think, oh, this is an affordable policy, and they are now drawn into buying that policy. Another example is if you are subscribed to a computer magazine. You may receive a letter from another company trying to sell you software. Now, because the letter you received relates to your interests, you may not mind it at first. But as an individual, you should have the choice as to whether your personal information is passed on. This brings us now to our first subtopic: proprietary data and software, or simply data or software that is owned by a specific person or a specific organization. As our world grows more dependent on technology, organizations have become increasingly dependent on their information systems, and this has made it more important for them to protect these systems and the data they contain. The data and the software developed and used exclusively by the organization is known as proprietary data and must often be used by employees for day-to-day operations. That is why organizations go to great lengths to protect the integrity and the security of their data. For example, a company like Samsung, they will have proprietary data and software they use to build their smartphones. The data may contain how to build their amazing camera, the flexible displays, and so on. But at the same time, these employees need to use that data to create the phone. So not only do they have to protect their data physically, but they have to limit who has access to this data or software, and may even have these employees sign contracts of secrecy so as to protect their data. This brings us now to our next subtopic, which we'll be looking at computer fraud. And here we'll be looking at about 9 types of computer fraud. So on the positive side, the development in computerized systems have contributed to a growth in electronic transaction processing. For example, being able to buy an item on Amazon even though your money is locally stored in a bank. But on the negative side, this has led to the use of computers to misuse information, which has led to a rise in computer-based fraud. The following types of computer fraud show the various ways in which information can be misused. The first type we'll be looking at is propaganda, which is the sharing of information that is biased or misleading. Now, because the use of computers to distribute information is used by almost everyone, this has inevitably resulted in their use for spreading both beneficial and harmful material. The widespread use of the internet by computer users has created a readily accessible means of transmitting such material. For example, in some countries, such propaganda or biased or misleading information may be used to sway public support in favor of one party group or in an attempt to discredit opposing groups. The second type of computer fraud is identity theft, which is when a person uses another person's identifying information. This has led criminals to use computerized systems to steal people's credit card information, date of birth, and other personal details that are typically used by banks to prove who you are online or by telephone. They then use those identities to make expensive purchases or facilitate cash transfers by using your information to make others believe that you are conducting the online transaction. So what can we do about identity theft? Well, first, a person can check their bank and credit card statements for unusual purchases. So for example, if while checking your bank statement and you notice a purchase to Amazon which you have no memory of making, then by contacting your bank about it, you can prevent the theft of your money. Second, using a secure website when making online purchases. When making purchases online, the first step a person should take is to ensure that the website is well known or popular. For example, Amazon, eBay, and so on. And it is being used by a lot of persons. This can be done by ensuring your connection to the website is using HTTPS, which is a secured version of HTTP. This can be checked by looking at the URL or the address of the website and making sure that it starts with HTTPS and not HTTP. Third, not making online purchases using a debit card that is connected to your main source of funds. A safe practice is to have a temporary card for transactions. For example, you have your main debit card which you use to access all your funds at the bank. But you can have a temporary card which you can transfer the exact money you need to make a transaction. So even if that temporary card is stolen or hacked by a person online, you will not lose all of your funds. Lastly, not using public computers to enter personal information. Because these systems can be accessed by anyone, since they're in the public, a hacker can easily track all the information that has been typed into this computer, even all the information that is stored on the computer, and all can be sent to his computer for him to view. The third type of computer fraud is financial abuse, which is basically a person taking control of another person's economic resources. An example of this computer-based fraud is when individuals have gained unauthorized access to financial accounts and change the details of those accounts to their advantage. So, for example, they can change the details of this financial account so that only they have access to the financial resources. There have also been examples of people setting up websites for companies that do not exist in order to accept people's credit card payments. And after receiving these information, they can use them to take control of a person's funds. The fourth type of computer fraud we'll be looking at is the phishing attacks. Phishing attacks involve the use of websites and email messages that try to trick you into entering your personal information. They may appear to look as though they are from an official organization, such as a bank or university, in order to trick you into typing personal information such as your credit card number or password in a form or in a reply to an email. For example, they might create a website looking and feeling exactly like Amazon, and they trick you into typing in all your personal information. Other examples include email messages asking you to send money to help someone who will repay you at a later date. You should ignore these messages as they are intended to steal money from you. Avoid downloading attachments in email messages from senders that you do not know, since the attachment may contain a virus or malware that searches for passwords and other personal information on your computer. So the key point is to never open an email if you do not know the sender, because sometimes even opening the email can infect your computer. The fifth type of computer fraud is denial of service attack, or as some call it, a DOS attack. This occurs when computer systems or networks are overwhelmed with so much data and processing that it makes it difficult or even impossible for legitimate users to access their computer systems, devices, or other network resources. This type of attack is similar to 20,000 students trying to access the CXC portal at the same time to see their results online. So basically, a DOS attack sends so much data to the system or uses up the CPU of the system so much that it becomes unable to process new data and new users cannot use the system. So let us look at some signs of a DOS attack. First, a decrease in network performance, especially when attempting to open files stored on the network or the cloud. So a file that normally takes a few seconds to download or open on the internet, but is now taking a few minutes, even hours, is a good sign of a DOS attack. Second, difficulty or inability to reach a regularly accessed website or any website. For example, if on a normal day it takes at least 5 seconds to maybe open YouTube, but now it's taking longer, maybe it's taking a few minutes, hours, that is a good sign of a DOS attack. Last, receiving lots of junk email. As a user, you constantly receiving junk mail or spam could be the data traffic that is actually slowing up your entire network, which is a good sign of a DOS attack. Now, all of this attack have resulted in an inconvenience to a majority of users on the network, when in fact the person who caused the attack usually intended to sabotage only an organization or an individual. So because everyone is using the network, they are all affected. The sixth type of computer fraud we'll be considering is industrial espionage, which is basically spying on someone or an organization to gain their secrets. This method of computer fraud is used by some organizations to gain an advantage over the competitors by illicitly gaining access to information about their marketing strategies, latest research, expansion plans, and so on. Before computer systems were so widely used, in the past, industrial espionage was done through break-ins, illegal photographing of documents, and insiders passing information out of the organization. Now, because of the use of computers, industrial espionage can be easily achieved by hacking into organizational databases and viewing the information they contain. The seventh type of computer fraud is electronic eavesdropping. Technology has become so advanced, for it has shown that it is possible to gather information from a computer from a distance by using commercially available equipment which can receive and process the radiation emitted by the monitor. The data being displayed at that time can be observed without the knowledge of the computer user. It helps us to see that electronic eavesdropping is the use of electronic devices to monitor electronic communications between two or more groups without the permission of any of the communicating parties. This includes computer data communications, voice, fax, phone, and email. All these means that a person used to make communication can be monitored by someone. We even have some computers which can be modified to intercept information being transferred in any electronic form along communication channel such as telephone lines, radio waves, and so on. So for example, an electronic form of communication is your Wi-Fi. And if it is not secured using a strong enough password or a strong enough encryption, then a person can monitor your Wi-Fi signal so as to capture your data as it travels as radio waves. Now, because monitoring is so common, this has led some companies to implement policy for all electronic communication to be monitored, including the telephone and email messages of their employees. But when the monitoring of our data is being done by authorized persons, the threat of invasion of our privacy becomes real. That is why it's a good idea to avoid transmitting sensitive information in electronic form unless there is an encryption system in place to ensure that the data is secure. Today, most companies ensure that their data is encrypted, often by the communication software, before it is transmitted. One example is WhatsApp. When you send a message on WhatsApp, the app is designed to encrypt the message, so only who you are sending to will be able to read that message. But if the encrypted data is intercepted by the wrong person, it is useless since the information is unreadable without the decryption key. The intended receiver will have the decryption key, with which the data can then be decoded and read. However, even this is not enough to stop the most persistent eavesdropping from intervening, since a weak encryption standard can easily be cracked with enough time. The eighth type of computer fraud relates to software and music piracy. Because there are so many websites that can easily share files, many software programs and music files can easily be accessed online by users from anywhere in the world. However, it is important to note that these files are legally owned by individuals or organizations. and they are rules or licenses for all programs or music specifying the permissions and limitations on how programs or music should be used. Therefore, when you use an online program or listen to a recording of a sound, there are some restrictions on what you can do with it. Software or music piracy occurs when someone does not abide by the rules to obtain permission from an owner. This type of piracy results from illegal use, sharing, selling, or distribution of copies of software or music, and prevents the rightful owners from getting money due to them for their creative efforts. So, every time a person goes to a pirate website and illegally downloads a song or a software, they are preventing that owner from receiving money they should have gotten for all the effort they put into making that song or software. This brings us now to the last type of computer fraud that we'll be looking at: unauthorized access, which is usually referred to as hacking. Now, hacking involves trying to electronically break into a system to which the individual does not have authorized access. The purpose behind this infiltration varies. Some hackers see their activities as a form of game playing, where they match their computer skills against those of an adversary, and just gaining access is sufficient reward for them. Others are more destructive in their intentions. They target organizations that they are antagonistic or hostile towards, and commit acts of electronic vandalism, such as changing critical data. This brings us now to the end of the topic, misuse of information. So in review, it is important to remember that information is a very valuable resource. And as individuals, we need to ensure that we protect our personal information and at the same time respect the use of information provided by others. This has brought us to the end, and I would like to thank you for viewing.